Hey, Chris, Liege Games. Let's do this. What am I talking about today? Why are you tuning in? I'm tuning in to Mythic Mischief. IB Games sent me a prototype copy, and I want to talk to you about it. What do you need to know about this as it winds down on GameFound? Is it right for you? What do you need to know? Pros, cons, everything in between. My thoughts on it, especially as the other descriptions I've seen out there are as an abstract. So, does it really fit the abstract bill? Is it really that sort of game? Well, let's take a look. Let's do this. So, this is Mythic Mischief. What do you need to know about Mythic Mischief? In general, Mythic Mischief is a game where you are traversing one of 3 members of your team across a library board, trying to grab your own books, because I'm going to screw up the word tombs versus tomes, and I'm just going to use this instead. And you are using them to upgrade the skills that you have in order to manipulate the bookshelves and prevent the tome keeper, the librarian, from getting you, causing you to lose points or the other team to gain points. First 1 to 10 wins, or you reach the end of the second round when the tome keeper reaches the 3rd spot. Sound simple? Well, it relatively is. It's relatively straightforward. But does it work? What do you need to know about it? Let's talk. So first off, I'm going to put this out there. Asymmetry. 7 asymmetric teams. Everything from witches to wizards to trolls to the elusive ghost expansion that I didn't have access to, unfortunately, because it's the exclusive one. So there's a little bit of everything for anyone. And part of the trick with a game like this is finding that one for you, because a game of this ilk, and let's talk about the abstract here for a second as a side note. Actually, you know what? With a game like this, with a team that you are utilizing as an asymmetric faction and going head to head against another person, you need to know how to utilize your powers to the best extent. And be frank with this, whether it's this game, whether it's something like Vast, whether it's something like BattleCon or Exceed, whatever it may be in these one-to-one head-to-head asymmetric situations, where they thrive is repeated play, because of the asymmetry. And this sort of dives me into point 2, 1b, whatever you want to call it. That, is this an abstract? Well, kinda, sorta. It is abstract in nature. I will put it that way. I would not call this a pure abstract game. You know, if you think of Talk, if you think of Yinch, anything in the GIF series, if you think of Hive, if you think of anything like that, the main feature I think of when I think of those is perfect information or near perfect information. This game, a little less so because of the asymmetric abilities. Now, it's close in that sense because it has an abstract nature, because if you are keen enough and aware enough, you can know what your other opponent is going to do. But it's not intuitive like you can just, know it offhand. And so therein lies a little bit of the just slight nuance. I'm splitting hairs, I know. But it's definitely abstract in nature. But again, going back to point 1, are you a person that is going to sit down and play an abstract game like this multiple times? That is where this game is going to shine. If you are interested in a game like this that is quick-ish, and you can have multiple plays with completely different outcomes because of the variable setup, and the variable interactions, and the skill of the other player, then this game is very good from that side of things. You will like it from that side of things. Now, as point 2.5 or 3 potentially, depending on your numbering system, whether you're the Imperial or the metric, let's talk about the asymmetry for a second here. The biggest trouble with an asymmetric game like this, when you've got 7 factions, 4 in the core game and 3 separate. The biggest concern is, how are they going to be head to head? What is the balance going to look like? When I talk about those other games like Vast, I mean the amount of balancing that has to go into that side of things to make the game successful and not collapse on itself like a house of cards is relatively significant. And that is my biggest concern when you give me 7 different factions. Especially when it comes from a crowdfunding. Let's be honest here. Crowdfunding in general, generally speaking, crowdfunding expansions do not have the best track record. They don't. And that's not just me saying that as a personal opinion. That's more of a matter of the past 5 years showing us that. And so that is always my biggest concern is, what are these going to do? Is there going to be a power creep? Are you going to go Goku Super Saiyan on me with one of these? Because, again, you're trying, in the gist of each of these factions, to have 4 abilities that you're using. And, well, I mean, 5 or 6, the after lunch and then the legendary. So, but there's 4 core abilities in each of these. And you're trying to make them all different, significantly different enough so that they all just don't feel like slight, tiny, itsy-bitsy iterations of each other, but also not making them this one significantly more powerful than this one. And, I'll be frank, 1 or 2 of the core ones I didn't really think quite matched up. The monsters, for example, if you pull up the rule book and you look at the monsters, I did not think that the monsters' abilities were nearly as useful in terms of how they manipulate things. I mean, I'm looking here and they throw, or they barrage. The barrage especially, of how it manipulates the tile next to you adjacently moving it. Like, when I was actually playing it against my wife, I did not find that one was useful. And that's my concern, is how much are those going to create imbalance issues? Because that leads me into point number 4. With these abstract type games, when there is less in here that needs mitigation, it means that if you have players that are of unequal skill level, this game can potentially be a little bit lopsided. And that ties right into point 3 too, because if one team has a particularly slightly stronger team and the other one has a slightly weaker team, that can also lopside things very quickly. And if you are like someone in my family and you end up in a game like that, in a situation like that, the incentive to play it again sometimes is not as high. So that is just a cautionary concern with anything like this. Now, point number 5. This is the other aspect of things, because I can't ignore it either. When we talk about IV games, we talk about Moonrakers, we talk about Veiled Fate, and now we talk about Mythic Mischief. I think the basement of these games, the ability of these games to stand on their own as very solid, worthwhile contributions to our hobby is there. But I think the concern is, as you know, I echoed this. I was a big person when Veiled Fate was going on, was that I thought it was too expensive for what it was. But what I will say now, looking back on that, looking back on this, looking back on Moonrakers, I will say that, price aside a second, let's talk about price, but let's put it in slightly different terms. I am viewing IV games now as more of the chip theory games equivalent, if you will. I mean, right? They're going with, this is all deluxe. I mean, if you want to go back to point number 1, that this is an abstract game done up, that all of these miniatures could just be cubes, or slight variations of cubes, and you could be cube pushing all over the board, I would not disagree with you whatsoever. Wouldn't disagree whatsoever. You could strip the theme off, and it would be completely the same. Now, some of the abilities, thematically, with the witches transforming, or the trolls bashing over the library barricades that completely take them out of the game. There's a thematic incorporation there, but you could easily strip it away and still have it be of that aspect. But my point is that people now all the time talk about chip theory games as way too expensive or not worth it. Or you have the other end of the spectrum saying, you know what, I'm paying a premium for a premium product. And I think especially with this campaign and the previous campaign, Veiled Fate, I'm not as familiar with Moonraker, so I can't speak to that. They're putting out a premium product for a premium price. And they're just being upfront about it. Whether or not you think it's too much then becomes on you. It's not like some of the other campaigns where all of a sudden they put out a deluxe version and, you know, you're wondering if you're going to get the right thing or if it's going to be worth it or if it's going to be resellable. No, they're just saying, hey guys, we're just going to do this deluxe. This is the way we want to do it. This is the way we want it to look. It's going to cost this much. And if you like it, great. If you don't, well, this is how we want to view things. And some level of clarity from that side of things, less bait and switch, less FOMO on that side of things is nice and refreshing once in a while. Whether or not it's for you is completely apart, but I just like transparency, whether or not it revolves around price or expansions or quality. Like, we're just going to put this out there. This is what it is. Boom, there you go. And that's what I've felt like a little bit with this one and with the previous Veiled Fate, looking back on it. Like I said, as much as I was a critic of it, you know, in terms of my concerns about price point initially. Because, yeah, you don't need a lot of this stuff. But, you know, we all have these games as well that we like to bling out. I mean, look at Scythe. Look at Terraforming Mars. Look at Catan. Bullet for me. That's mine. I love the wooden tokens in Bullet. Completely superfluous and unnecessary. The cardboard ones would suffice. But sometimes in the games we really like, we want more than just to suffice. And that's what Ivy Games is doing with this. It's going from, well, that's nice, you know, ooh, Yinch, that looks a little bit rough, to, oh, that looks kind of cool. That's kind of got a little bit nice table presence. Tell me more. But you have to have the cash flow to be able to accomplish that, and that's where the duality comes in. So, what do I think? You know, I'm a fan of abstracts. I'm a fan of this game. I like this game. My biggest concerns, again, like I said, all of these have to be equally balanced. There is nothing that is going to turn me off quicker than one of these being over or underpowered. I was frankly very frustrated playing the Monsters faction, if you will know. I had a blast playing the Wizards. You know? And so, and that's the dichotomy of it. But this is my type of game. It is. Whether it's blinged out or not blinged out. Having the ability to swap these out is great. And the only question is, are you going to like one of these or the ghosts more than you like the core? Because of how these move things around. This has more of the magic element. I'm looking at the right one, right? Okay. And this one has more of the smash and toss and, you know, boom sort of thing. No boxes were hurt in the making of this video. And that's just the risk in this if you're not going to get them all. Is there going to be one out there that you are going to miss out on? And that is probably the one thing that you just need to be aware of. Or are the 4 core factions going to be enough for you from that side of things? Again, price point, availability, how much are you going to play it? That is what's helpful. One last note I have to leave you with Mythic Mischief, though. I didn't talk about it, but the player modes. And I mean that twofold in 2 different ways. One, it plays anywhere from 1, almost messed that up with the fingers there, to 4 players. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm not much of a solo player. There is a solo mode. I can't speak to that. On the 2-player side of things, if we're especially talking about it from an abstract standpoint, this is where my sweet spot is for these types of games. 2+ players in abstracts you'll find are very rare. The real, true core abstracts. With 3 and 4, it becomes less about the perfect information because there's a chaos of other people going that you won't have control over. And the team mode of either 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 2 just adds a whole different dynamic to it. I haven't played that. I've only done the 2-player mode. But I am primarily going to be playing this at a 2-player mode regardless. That's where my personal preference is. Now, the one caveat I will put on there is that this game is meant to be aggressive. It rewards the aggressor. passivity will put you behind. So if you are a passive thinker, planner, 3 steps ahead, no, this game is tactical. Boom, 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 boom. Go this turn, next turn. How do you react, counteract, or respond to what the other person does? And the other interesting aspect is the blitz mode. If you're familiar with like blitz chess, where you have a limited time and they're slapping the clock and it's going back and forth fast paced, they have this mode as well. At the 1 versus 1 or the 2 versus 2, I believe. And that's the other dynamic where I could possibly see myself playing the 2 versus 2, just because if you know anything else about my channel, I love chaotic fun. And that screams pure chaos in a speedier nutshell. And that is the one thing that would probably honestly get it to the table even more, because the 1 versus 1 games can go for, you know, a good 20 to 30 minutes. And having that speed mode, essentially, could really make it more attractive. Again, though, from an anti-analysis paralysis side of things, because, I mean, it's something like 2 minutes per side, I think, total. I could be, don't quote me on that, but it's something crazy like that. And that's one aspect that I love about Bullet, as the other comparison going back to earlier, that the timer in Bullet makes it rushed, but not in a bad way. And that's what I feel like Blitz would do. It would just take the edge off of worrying about any analysis paralysis that goes into it. Not that there's that much to begin with, but it would just slice that away. So all in all, yeah. I mean, there you go. Mythic Mischief. Check it out. It's almost done. Hopefully you found this interesting. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, or any question about anything related to the gameplay. I got a copy. I'm playing it. So hopefully I can answer anything you got. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked it, let me know. As always, stay classy. Let's do this. See you around.